Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, we talk about 4 different types of freedom: time, financial, location, and health freedom. And today we have a special guest, Christopher Clepp, and he's going to be talking about helping business owners make work optional. So he's a financial planner. He's entrepreneurial-minded. What's interesting is we're going to be talking about fiduciaries, and so it's going to be a great, interesting discussion. So, Christopher, welcome.
Thank you for having me on, Dr. Liu. Very, very excited to talk with you today.
I know we connected through Podmatch, and it's interesting because we were talking. The reason why I did this podcast was to just help physicians navigate this area of financial, economic uncertainty. Really they're focused on their practices. So tell us more about yourself, and we'll get started.
Yeah, so I've been in financial services here for 21 years. So I started on the insurance side of the business. So I was an agent. I managed. I owned my own brokerage for a while. What I found out after a while is that I preferred less managing people and actually helping people, right? And that's what I really focused on. And then what I found out, some time ago, right, was that you could be the world's best insurance agent. You're only going to be a person's insurance agent, but by being a truly great financial planner, you can really be a true part of their success and a partner in their journey to financial freedom. And that's really what gets me up each and every day is really helping these amazing clients that I have that have all these great ideas. Their hair's on fire. They're trying to run through brick walls. And I get to help. I get to help them break through those brick walls. And that's what gets me pumped up every day.
I think I can hear the passion and, mission-driven purpose, and get you up and excited, especially in today's times where there's so much uncertainty. How do people plan for the future in an uncertain world?
Yeah, there's particularly today that there's just so much information that comes to us through the media, through social media, through all of this, and a lot of it is driven by the idea, if it bleeds, it leads. The worse information that they can make it sound, the way they can spin it, that's how they're going to put it forward to you. So people are reasonable to be apprehensive, to be scared about what they hear on the news. It is certainly part of my job to make sure that we have put together a good plan for clients so that no matter what happens, they're going to be able to weather the storm, right? It was that we're not going to try. You can't avoid the storms when the economy is going crazy and inflation's going skyrocketing, and you hear about a recession. I mean, we can't avoid those things, right? We're not going to move, into a hut up on the top of a mountain in Colorado or something like that. What we want to do is we want to build a plan that is going to be there in the good times and the bad times for them, so that they have the sense so that they feel secure, knowing that even though, like, if they're checking their account, it's down obviously than what it was from where it was, a year or two ago, but that they're still going to be able to really, be able to achieve their goals. I know in financial planning, we cannot promise a rate of return, but we can help clients make sure that they reach their goals no matter what the range of returns are.
Yeah, I love this idea of, especially this idea of financial resilience, which is a really interesting concept. And, planning, it's like planning for, like education or, wedding or things, and taking care of your finance. So what are the good pillars of a good financial plan? People listening to this, they may, they have income, expenses, but what is a good solid plan? What are pillars?
Yeah, so I believe that a good financial plan, right, begins with the end in mind, right? So just have a clear vision about where it is that you are trying to get. And your vision could be different than my vision, will be different than, every individual has a different vision for where it is that they want to go. And so if we can begin with that and then align how we're trying to get there with our values. So I'm very, very value driven in what I do. I recommend to my clients always to focus on their values, because it's one thing to get to our destination. It's, I think, more meaningful if we get there without having to compromise our values along the way. And so I think that's important. I'm also obviously it's my profession. I believe it's a huge value to outsource this and have a partner that's going to help you along the way as you do this. Many of your listeners are running their own practice. They're married. They have children, right? I know as a 47-year-old with 3 children, 2 of them under the age of 5, trying to run a business. That is all of my time, right? That is more than all of my time most weeks. And so there's a lot of things that I could do that I don't do because I can't keep laser focus on it, right? It's not like, could I do my own taxes? Absolutely, could I do my own taxes? But I'd rather hire a professional to do it. So when you're thinking about that, there's all these different pieces, right? So like we're trying to get your risk management, we're trying to get your retirement planning, your investment planning, your estate planning. We're trying to get all of these things moving in the right direction, and it's a job unto itself in doing that. And when you don't have the time to properly execute it, that's when the problems happen. When your estate plan doesn't match with your tax plan, doesn't mesh with your investment plan, doesn't mesh with your insurance planning. I mean, all of these things can start getting out of whack. And we want to just make sure that everything is pushing in the same direction as opposed to going all different directions for us.
And that's, you talk about this idea of work optional and how it's different than retirement and how financial planning fits into that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and I think this is particularly true for the entrepreneur that's out there, right? Is that I love my job. I love what I do. I can never imagine there being a time when I'm not doing what I'm doing, right? It's part of who I am. But what I do want to do is I want to make sure that if that changes, if there is a change in the need in my life, right? If I have a spouse, if my spouse gets sick, if there's a special need for my child, if I need to change it, or one day I walk in and I go, you know what? No, I've changed it. I just want to move to San Sebastian, Spain, and eat my way through Spain. That is my favorite city, by the way. So if one day I just decide that I'm done with that, I want to be able to have that control. And it's really not. It's really about having the control to make your decisions on your terms moving forward, right? Because we have this idea, we work to, right? What's retirement? Oh, everybody works to 65. They retire, they move to Florida, they go play golf, right? That's the quote unquote typical retirement. Certainly there are some people that find that very, very fulfilling. There's more than a few people that I've talked to along the way that sort of did that and realized that, you can only golf so much, and they got bored with it and they wanted to get back to doing something different. Particularly physician, right? They get into medicine oftentimes because they want to help people. They are mission driven individuals, and they can't imagine not doing it. But putting themselves in a position so that they can make work optional. They don't have to go in there for a paycheck. Now maybe they can be more mission driven. Maybe they can volunteer more of their time. Maybe they're running their practice at not peak profitability, but at peak happiness for themselves as a physician. So there's a lot of different things that being able to make work optional gives you the control to do what it is that you want to do. I mean, I know that's part of our plan for a lot of people, so that, if something changes in their work relationship, they can make the choices that make sense to them at that point.
Yeah. It's all about, having control and really just calling your own shots. And then what do you see, when you're talking about financial planning, what do you see like the biggest problems people have when preparing their futures?
Yeah, so I think that when people are preparing for their future, they often sense a false sense of certainty, right? So I know in the financial planning profession, we are working in an area of irreducible uncertainty, right? Is that I talk about with all my clients. So do I have software that shows them that you have a 70% chance of making it towards exactly what it is that you want to do? Yes, we have that always running in the background. And if clients want to get down into the weeds with that, we're going to get into there. But what I know is that there's just going to be a bunch of things that we haven't calculated, we haven't assumed were going to happen, these obstacles that happen in along the road. And you need to be prepared to have that, to be flexible, so that once you get knocked off your path, you're going to be able to get back on it, right? A lot of times also people view that, so 4% is the rule of thumb in retirement. That's a whole other podcast about whether or not how good that is. But what that means is that if you want $200,000 in income, in retirement, you need to have $5 million. And so what happens a lot of times is that people start a little bit too late with their financial planning, and then they start taking too much risk, right? They start trying to look for these silver bullets that are going to get them to that number, which can be risky. And then other people, when they see that, it's sort of like standing at the base of Mount Everest, right? They look up and they go, "Yeah, that's not really going to happen," and then they just push it off even further. And so it can be difficult for people to try and get these really large numbers, right? Like I always love the statistic, right? If you get 1% better every day, you get 3,700% better over the course of a year. And it's not any of those 1% days that makes the difference. It's just showing up repeatedly doing this. And so it can be tough to lay out a plan and then stick to the plan day after day, month after month, year after year. But that is really what it takes to have financial security. Now, there may be opportunities where you start a business, it has that hockey stick moment, you exit the business, it gets you everything that you want, but we can't count on those events to make our future, right? Is that we need to be prepared so that if you don't have that event, then you're fine. And if you do have that event, even better, it leads to a different lifestyle, it leads to generational wealth. Those are the type of things that they can be additive towards. But really what we need to do is make sure that we have a plan. We do step by step as we work through there, and don't lose sight of the fact that we can accomplish great things by small actions over long periods of time.
I like that. I like that. It's like singles and doubles versus home runs. Now, I know financial planning is a little bit different for business owners than professionals. Tell us more about financial planning as it pertains to business owners.
So with planning for business owners, it's a different breed, right? Is that so a lot of financial planners are, a large part of the financial planning profession is geared towards those people that are, and are just working at a company. They have their company provided 401k. They're getting everything through that. They don't really have to think too much about that. Just max out your 401k, put some extra money onto the side. Whereas with the business owner, right, that business is going to be the flywheel of their wealth generation, and that most business owners want to continue to reinvest in their business. And a financial advisor that's working with a business needs to be able to appreciate that need, that desire, and probably what can be a good choice if the business is well run with a good business plan. That's going to be their biggest wealth generator. And so we need to make sure, as in financial planning, that we don't try and do too much to upset that apple cart or disrupt their ability to grow that business as they move through it, right? So that's one thing that you need to make sure of as you do this. You also need to help clients understand the business owners to understand the unique position that they are in from a tax planning perspective, right? Is that there are whole sections of the of the IRS regulations that are set up to possibly benefit a business owner as they move through. And so a good financial planner will help the client understand how to maximize those pieces to for that. So the business owner also wants to, also really needs to be able to. He has all of these professionals that he's working with, right? And so and you're going to have accountants and business brokers and benefits brokers and your financial advisor and other possibly other co-owners and all these things. And so you need to make sure that everybody's pushing in that same direction. And oftentimes a financial planner can sit there and help them focus on coordinating all of those professionals that they have. And then because the business is their largest asset, they need to have a reasonable valuation to it, right? Like a formal valuation of a company, $15,000, $20,000, it's not an inexpensive option. But you don't need that if you're just early in the planning process. What we need to do is have a reasonable number, because a lot of times what business owners think is like, oh, well, hey, Dr. Clepp here, right? Like, well, Dr. Lou sold his practice down the street for $5 million. Therefore, my practice, it seems a little bit like Dr. Lou's, my practice is also worth $5 million. Well, that's not necessarily how it works. There's some differences in the way that your practice work that help drive that value. And so my practice may only be worth $2 million. Well, if we're planning around, hey, I'm just going to sell my practice at $5 million later on down the road, that becomes a problem when I only get $2 million there as well. And so we need to have that realistic value and then begin exit planning really from day one. Now, it may seem crazy for an entrepreneur that's in their 40s to think about how they're going to leave the business. But what I can tell you is that everybody's going to leave their business eventually, right? And the question is, do you have a plan in place for it? Or do you not have a plan in place for it? Is it going to be orderly exit or is it going to be a disorderly exit? And so we talked about all those professionals we're working with. The financial planner is the only one that's going to be there with you during the growth phase, during the sale, and then afterwards to make sure that you get the retirement that it is that you want out of all of this. And so it is a multi-part process that's different from your typical W-2 employees, that there's these added complexities that you need to make sure that you're aware of moving forward.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. We're talking about exit planning, and no matter where you are, it's which stage in your practice, you need to start, creating exit plan right now. I know a lot of people are interested in finding more about you, following you, visiting your website, contacting you. So how can they do that?
Yeah, so I have a website called Building, and that's where every week I put out some information that I think is beneficial. That Gen X, Gen Y business owner, right? So I'm 47. Most of my clients are Gen X like me. That puts us 57 to 30, to 40 or so. We're all in we're in that phase. So that's I think a great resource. I'm also on LinkedIn, of course. You can also reach me at Chris at STG. That's Sam, Tom, George, FIN, first three letters in financial.
Yeah, and thanks for all the listeners for tuning in. Christopher's resources will be in the links and show notes. It's been a fascinating discussion, especially financial planning for business owners and the exit planning. So thanks so much, and we look forward to hearing about your future success.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.